There is a phenomenon in psychology that often gets mentioned but then discarded among the popular discussion. It's called the Barney effect. Wait, hang on, it's called the Barnum effect. This is the tendency of individuals to give high accuracy ratings to descriptions of their personality that are supposedly tailored specifically to them, yet which are in fact vague and general enough to apply to a wide range of people. This seems harmless enough, but allow me to explain why it gets under my skin so much. The effect was first documented in 1948 in what has been described as a classic experiment. Psychologist Forer gave psychology tests to 39 of his psychology students, who were then told that they would receive a brief personality analysis based on their test results. 1 week later, Forer gave each student a purportedly individualized vignette and asked them to rate it on how well it applied to them. In reality, each student received the exact same set of statements. Some of these statements were, "You have a great deal of unused capacity which you have not yet turned to your advantage. You have a tendency to be critical of yourself. While you have some personality weaknesses, you are generally able to compensate for them. At times, you are extroverted, affable, sociable, while at other times you are introverted, wary, reserved." At a baseline level, this isn't all that harmful or notable. It can perhaps explain why music or stories that are broadly relatable and applicable have more appeal. But this effect is a lot like a counterfeit dollar. Just having it might not harm much, but as soon as you use it, it is by definition a grift. Fortune tellers and psychics use this tactic to great degree. A psychic may say something that is broadly applicable and people will be astonished. This is made worse by people's tendency to view their own experience and mental states as unique, when in fact, they're usually not. That's just the basics of the effect though, and I don't think many of you are going to fortune tellers or psychics. The discussion of this effect usually ends there with these baseline assertions. But if this was all the Barnum effect entailed, it wouldn't be my least favorite part about the brain. Barnum's statements can be made about groups of people that are broadly applicable, not just individuals. These can be groups that are real, or they can be arbitrarily created, like in the case of astrology. Just divide people up among arbitrary boundaries, then give them all very general personality descriptions and predictions, then presto, you've got a bullshit machine. But if you are one of the people who believes this nonsense, the short appeal I'll make to you is that once people invest their money or time, they become significantly less likely to admit that they've been conned due to cognitive dissonance. Your brain is going to rationalize what you've been doing. So if you go to a psychic once, or you listen to your horoscope once, it's embarrassing to admit that you got scammed. Do not rationalize yourself getting grifted. Astrology is pseudoscience at its most ridiculous.
Use combustion largely to make water go upwards. Water by nature tends to flow downwards. Neptune in Aries, to me, because Aries rules the head, Neptune ruling the feet, we are going to find a whole new generation of leaders.
People cling to it because apparently Mercury in retrograde is a better explanation for your problems than taking responsibility for your own choices and actions. The statements and descriptions of people are overly general and remarkably unhelpful, but they can offer some mental copium for things that are out of your control.
And I realize that we're all in this together, but if I detach and I judge people and I exclude myself, then I forget the truth about Scorpio, which is there's a universal flavor called humanness. And if I can accept that, we become family.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't a billion-dollar industry and these people weren't so damn ridiculous.
And you're even more curious what your role is, which is why people come. And by the way, our school opens again in January. It's quite a distance.
Okay, so the practical takeaway here is pretty simple. Just don't put too much weight or pay money for general personality or life advice. I think most people more or less understand this. Most people know that psychics and horoscopes are bullshit. And if you don't, I'm probably not going to convince you. They both provide personality descriptions as well as general advice or predictions of behavior. But, ladies and gentlemen, these are just the most obvious way the Barnum effect can be used. The rabbit hole goes deeper. Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Good lord. The MBTI splits people into one of 16 categories based on binary choices, like introverted versus extroverted and thinking versus feeling. First off, the MBTI was developed by two people, Catherine Cook Briggs and Isabel Briggs Myers, who were not scientists or psychologists. Their work wasn't based on rigorous evidence-backed research. It was based on Carl Jung's early 20th century theories on psychological types. Jung himself explicitly stated that his theories were not meant to box people into rigid categories. But hey, they went ahead and did it anyway, because why not capitalize on human curiosity and self-obsession? And in a shocker to no one, human personalities don't work on binaries. People exist on a spectrum. You are not 100% introverted or extroverted. You're probably somewhere in between. And where you land can shift based on context, mood, or even the time of day. This entire methodology is lazy and oversimplified. In terms of reliability, if you take the MBTI today, then again in a month, there's a good chance you'll get completely different results. Studies show that up to 50% of people are reclassified every time they take the test. This test claims to reveal your personality type and help you understand how you think, work, and interact with others. But does it actually predict behavior? Short answer, no. Long answer, no. Fuck no. Multiple studies have shown that MBTI results do not correlate in any way with actual personality traits or job performance. It is about as useful as your horoscope. So yeah, the MBTI is also pseudoscientific garbage. It is oversimplified, unreliable, invalid, and yet somehow manages to be a multi-million-dollar industry. It is the astrology of the corporate world, but instead of blaming Mercury in retrograde, you're blaming your INFJ tendencies for why you didn't get that promotion. Alright, but let's assume that you are a student of real psychology. You don't believe in psychics, you don't believe in horoscopes, and you don't believe in bullshit personality tests. Let us brainstorm, for instance, if there are any other labels that we have started to use to describe behaviors that could be broadly applicable. Think? Yes, you got it. Now, astrology and the MBTI are completely fabricated categories, but if you are especially intuitive, you would have surmised that people can do the same thing with real mental health conditions too. Psychology stumbled into a bit of muddy territory with its descriptions of the mind. The fact that these labels exist allows people to go on TikTok and pitch their experience as a person with anxiety, and millions of people will relate to this. Well, because everyone will feel those same feelings from time to time. Maybe you don't know the kind of channels or posts I'm talking about, but they propagate across social media at an astounding rate. The memes I'm about to show you are not cherry-picked. They're literally the first ones that I found when I went into Instagram Reels and searched autism and ADHD. This is literally astrology except applied to mental health conditions. The posts that do the best on social media are not the ones that are specific to people with mental health conditions. They are the posts that apply to everyone.
No, God!
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Now, if you have a mental health condition, before you go shitting yourself in the comments saying that these described your experience perfectly, shut up! They applied to everyone. I neither have ADHD nor autism, and I related to literally every single one of those posts. I suppose you could diagnose me with both based on how much I vibe with Instagram posts, because apparently that's now a valid metric to diagnose mental health conditions. I'm not saying that mental health conditions aren't real, and that people aren't different. Autism, ADHD, and mood disorders are 100% real. We have a variety of ways to assist people with these brain states to better operate in society. The problem is if you describe the actual symptoms of these conditions, you end up getting statements that are pretty broadly applicable to the general population, unless you are very specific in what you are talking about. If you're looking for a more in-depth explanation of what's actually happening in mood disorders like anxiety, PTSD, or OCD, go watch our Hitchhiker's Guide to the Brain series. But, as I highlight in part 2 of the series, the thing that really defines these as disorders is how rigidly the brain is thinking, how difficult it is for the person to shake the behaviors or mood in question. To be fair, most medical professionals know this, but that doesn't stop the so-called neurodivergent influencers from pitching their bullshit. Listen to this statement on anxiety disorders by the Mayo Clinic. People with anxiety disorders frequently have intense, excessive, and persistent worry or fear about everyday situations. Often, anxiety disorders involve repeated episodes of sudden feelings of intense anxiety, fear, or terror that reach a peak within minutes. These feelings of anxiety and panic interfere with daily activities, are difficult to control, and are out of proportion to the actual danger faced. Listen to those words again. Intense, excessive, frequent, interfering with daily activities, and out of proportion to the actual danger faced. So, the medical professionals are telling you that if you aren't suffering and debilitated on a daily basis, you don't have a disorder. The same is true with autism. If you just don't like loud environments and have a general disinterest in socializing, this doesn't mean that you're autistic. These labels are for people who literally cannot function in those situations without extreme discomfort and coping strategies, if they can function at all. If you need help in a situation, that's 100% okay. But if you can handle it on your own, and you always have been able to handle it on your own, I got bad news for you. You don't have a disorder. This should be inherently obvious to anyone who has thought about mental health for more than 2 seconds. It is called autism spectrum disorder. That means that everyone in society exists somewhere on that spectrum from more autistic to less autistic. Now, am I going to sit here and gatekeep who gets to apply mental health disorders to themselves? No, you can call yourself whatever you want. My point is that medical professionals are telling the public that you don't really have a problem unless it is more or less constant and you can't handle it on your own. If that is the case and accurately describes your experience, please seek help. If it doesn't, you don't have a mental health condition. You might be a person who is more anxious or autistic or schizophrenic than normal, but that's it. Oftentimes, in these cases, the same strategies could help you, but the label of a mental health condition should not be important to you, especially if you are self-diagnosed. That's like the first thing they teach you in a psych class, that it is grossly medically irresponsible to self-diagnose mental health. People are famously bad at evaluating themselves, and they tend to think that their experiences are unique, when in fact they are totally normal. But alas, memes like this are used as the mental health version of a horoscope. They offer easy explanations of normal behaviors or mental states and emotions. This creates both the problem of people without conditions thinking that they have them, as well as people who actually suffer from something using these to explain things that are completely unrelated to their condition. Once again, I'm not saying there aren't some good memes or descriptions of what it's like to live with ADHD or autism, but the internet will push the ones that are the least specific to those conditions. The most popular posts will just be bullshit that ignore how persistent and disruptive those emotions and thoughts are in someone who actually has the condition. And if you think that you might have something, go get a real psychologist to diagnose you. For the love of God, don't self-diagnose based on memes. As much as I hate these posts, I wish the implications of the Barney effect stopped there. Unfortunately, a part 2 of this video will need to be made to look at even more implications of this effect across broader society.